Shalom and welcome to Tov, the Jewish News Channel. And today we have with us a research fellow from the South Wales University in Cardiff. His name is Dr. Ori Wertman, and he will be speaking to us about what the Palestinians really think. What do they think about the two-state solution, the one-state solution, and what do they think about terror? Good morning.
Good morning. Great to be here.
So you have a survey that you would like to tell us about, correct?
Yes, indeed. It's very important to understand that I haven't conducted those polls, of course. I take the data from several polls, but it is mainly based, this data is based on public opinion polls conducted by the Palestinian Center for Policy and Survey Research, the PCPSR, led by Professor Khalil Shkaki, which is one of the prominent experts actually on Palestinian public opinion. And since 1994, those polls are being conducted quarterly. And then we can see the trend in the polls. And those polls actually very reliable and accurate.
That's every 3 months. Wow.
Every 3 months since 1994. Think about it. We can see the trend, what happened with the Palestinian public opinion in the last 30 years, actually. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm. It is amazing. Okay, so let's have a look.
Okay, the first question, when you ask the Palestinians, under current conditions, do you support or oppose abandon the two-state solution and demand the establishment of one state for Palestinians and Israelis?
Okay, before we see the answer, let's just make sure we understand the question. The two-state solution is what the Israeli left has been proposing for the past 35, 40 years, right? That would mean there would be a Palestinian state in what is known, what we call Judea and Samaria, what they call the West Bank. In other words, east of Jerusalem. And there would be an Israeli state that would be confined within the borders before the Six-Day War. Is that correct? That would be the two-state solution.
Partly correct. The two-state solution was introduced not just by the Israeli left, also by the Israeli center and part of the right. Remember the Bar-Ilan speech by Netanyahu. So let's say
I remember
that the majority...
it very well. I remember it very well because I'm a simultaneous interpreter, and I interpreted that speech in Bar-Ilan myself.
So the majority, great to hear, but let's say that the majority of Israelis, the mainstream of Israeli public, supported the two-state solution. Regarding the territory, there is a dispute even in Israel, but let's say that the Gaza Strip and most of the West Bank, this is the two-state solution, correct?
Right. And the one-state solution would be one state for Israelis and Palestinians, where the Palestinians would be more than a third of the population, correct?
Not third. If we take together the West Bank and Gaza Strip, we're talking about almost half.
Almost half.
Okay,
wow.
Almost half. Okay. It's like 50%. And some will say it's not a one-state solution. People call it the binational state solution.
A binational state solution. Okay.
Binational state solution.
So those were the two options that were on the table.
The two options. Regarding that question, they're asking the people, are you willing to abandon this two-state solution and establish a binational state? This is the question. And we can see that 70%, more or less, in average, we can see the last poll, we're talking about a little bit more than 72%, they are against abandon the two-state solution and establish binational state, meaning that they don't want to establish a binational state. They don't want to live together with the Jews in one state. This is the conclusion.
They do want a two-state solution?
Let's see. In the next question, we will understand whether it is true. But this question, let's be very accurate. This question asks, are you willing to abandon this two-state solution and establish a binational state. It doesn't mean that you support the two-state solution or against the two-state solution.
Right.
But
right.
if we take if we take it today, if you want to understand the Palestinian public, you must conduct polls. You need to distinguish, between the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, because even though there are things that are quite similar, there are answers that totally different, and it depends on the question, of course. But in regarding to this question, abandon two-state solution and establish binational state, we see that it's almost identical. 70% of the people in the West Bank they against abandoning the two-state solution and establish a binational state. And we can see the same result also in the Gaza Strip. Roughly 70% in the last poll, they don't want a binational state together with Israelis, with the Jews.
Okay, so that's the bottom line. The Palestinians do not want a binational state of Jews and Arabs, and if it includes the Gaza Strip, it would be 50-50 almost.
Yes, and it's very important to explain that we see a lot in the media that there are journalists and researchers, they try to frighten us that the Palestinians, they are supporting, the majority of them supporting a binational state. The polls show otherwise. Mm-hmm. The polls shows that it's wrong. 70% of the Palestinians, a majority of the Palestinians, they don't want a binational state. They don't want to live with the Jews, period.
Okay, so let's move on to the next question.
The next question is, do you support or oppose the solution based on the establishment of a Palestinian state alongside Israel, known as the two-state solution? And here, you can see that the first time they asked that question was in September 2012, and you can see the trend. At the beginning, the majority of the Palestinians, more than 50%, supported the two-state solution, but right now, according to the last poll, and we can see that something happened in the last few years, almost 70% of the Palestinians, they're against the two-state solution. And it's amazing.
They're against a one-state solution, and they're against a two-state solution. 70%,
Indeed.
More or less.
70% they're against a binational state solution, and they're against a two-state solution.
Okay.
And you know the conclusion. And by the way, the same results, like the first question, the same results are in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank.
Okay. In other words, 70% of the Gaza Strip, 70% of the West Bank are opposed to a two-state solution and a one-state solution.
Correct.
More or less.
Absolutely correct.
Okay.
Absolutely
correct.
Let's
see what happens next in the survey.
Another question before we go to the million-dollar question, what the Palestinians really want, what kind of state they want. There is a question. Some believe that the two-state solution, an independent Palestinian state alongside the state of Israel, is no longer viable due to settlements expansion, while others believe that it is still viable today as settlements can be dismantled or evacuated when an agreement is reached. And here we can see that 70% of the...
Like Gush Katif. Evacuate all the people out of there. We're talking about a few 100,000 people.
Yes, but it's very important to mention that the first time they asked that question was also September 2012, when Israel already disengaged from the Gaza Strip in July 2005. So here we are talking about the settlements in the West Bank. So according to that question, 70%, according to the last poll, 70% of the Palestinians, they believe that the two-state solution is no longer viable. And the same also no longer viable, and we see the same result in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. We can see in all the first three questions, the people in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, they think similar, think the same.
Okay. Same mindset. Okay.
Absolutely. Another very interesting question: do current political, security, and economic conditions lead you to seek immigration abroad?
Okay.
And here, whether meaning that are you seek to immigrate from the West Bank or Gaza Strip?
In other words,
It depends.
would you leave either the West Bank, Judea and Samaria, or Gaza if you had the opportunity to do so?
Correct. And we can see that when you ask all the Palestinians, almost 70%, even a little bit more than 70%, 70, 75%, they're not seek to immigrate from the Palestinian Authority, whether it's the West Bank or Gaza, when you ask them as a whole. But when you distinguish between the West Bank and Gaza, we can see that in the West Bank, almost 80% of the Palestinians in the West Bank, they don't want to leave. While in the Gaza Strip, we can see that in the last poll, it was 30% who were willing to leave, but there were polls that it was almost 40%. Most of the time, this question, the first time they asked this question was in September 2007. Let's say the average was that 40% of the people in Gaza, they're willing to immigrate from the Gaza Strip abroad due to the condition. And it's amazing. It's like, if we're talking about today, it's like that almost 1 million people would like to immigrate from the Gaza Strip. It's a lot.
It's a lot, and
But still, the majority,
it's probably mostly people aged, say, 16, 17 to 45 or something like that. People who are younger, who don't have big families yet, or something of that nature, and fewer ties.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure because it's a poll. They
Right.
didn't ask everyone, but regarding the poll, we're talking about 70%, a majority of 70%. They don't want to leave.
Want to leave.
They don't want to leave the Palestinian Authority, the West Bank, the Gaza Strip. But we can see that in the Gaza Strip, they are more willing to leave.
More, but still not overwhelming. Not overwhelming numbers.
No. It's very relative.
It's a hypothetical question. It's a hypothetical question.
It's very relative because if 40% of the society wants to leave, it's a lot. Think about the state of Israel, for instance. 40% of 10 million, it's 4 million people. I think it will be very devastating if 4 million Jews will leave the state of Israel. Okay, so that's it. Regarding the next question.
Yes.
Very interesting one. And this is regarding also the first two questions, because we saw that 70% of the Palestinians, they're against the binational state solution. And also 70% of the Palestinians, they're against the two-state solution. So what they want? So here, since Khalil Shkaki, he didn't ask that question, I took the answers from another very prominent scholar who conduct polls. His name is Pollock from the Washington Institute. And the question is, which should be the top Palestinian national priority? And the answers that people can answer are the two states, all Palestine, and the binational state. And we can see that it distinguished between the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, but this poll is not conducted every quarter. It is conducted once a year. Okay?
Okay.
And
but what does that mean?
That
Palestine, all Palestine. Is that what it sounds like? Like from the river to the sea?
Absolutely. They say
it actually should include Jordan. It actually should include Jordan as well.
When they say Kul Palestine, they mean from the river to the sea, and I guess that the Jews should be not in the river, if you know what I mean. Unfortunately, yep. This is the bitter truth, and we can see that in the West Bank, according to the last poll, almost 40% of the people in the West Bank, they're supporting the all Palestine solution. and you said no Israel solution, which is more accurate. Almost 30% supporting the two-state solution and less than 20% supporting the binational state solution. But we can see that, for instance, in 2020, more than 60%, even 65% supported the all-Palestine solution. But in the Gaza Strip, we can see it very clear. Between 50%, 60% to 70% supporting the all-Palestine solution, no Israel solution. And it's very important to mention this, especially today when many journalists and media speaking about the Gaza Strip, the society of the Gaza Strip. They want to distinguish between Hamas and the society in the Gaza Strip and the public. The public in the Gaza Strip supporting Hamas. We will see that they're also supporting Hamas and they're supporting all Palestine, no Israel solution. Very important to understand
to sum up,
who are the people in the Gaza Strip.
We can sum up to say that any solution, in quotes, would certainly not be a peace solution in their eyes. Their solution involves the elimination of the state of Israel as a Jewish state, for sure. And they're not even willing to share the territory with Israel and with Jews. They just want, basically, to have it all for themselves, and they will get rid of us one way or another. Have I summed it up correctly?
Absolutely correctly, according to the polls. Yes, we can see it black and white. Absolutely, okay. Unfortunately.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ori Wertman, for this very enlightening and disturbing conversation. I'd like to thank our viewers and remind you all to like us on all our channels on YouTube, WhatsApp, Telegram, Twitter, and Facebook.